So when they announced that Marvel was doing an Ultraman comic, I was excited, but I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out with whoever would be on board with the project. And then a couple of months later, early this year, we found out that Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom would be writing this comic. Now, if you don't know who Kyle Higgins is and Matt Groom is, Kyle Higgins is the writer of Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, issue 0 all the way to issue 30 and Shattered Grid. And Matt Groom is known from being on Ranger Danger podcast and writing his own comic called Self-Made. So when I found out who was working on this comic, I was even more intrigued to dive into it and start reading it when it came out, because I'm not that familiar with Ultraman. I know what Ultraman is, I know that he's got a dozen series out there like Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, but I've never watched an Ultraman series, so it is a bit confusing for me when I read this comic because I'm not very familiar with the source material. I know what Ultraman is, he's a giant man that punches Kaiju and stuff like that, but I've never watched an Ultraman show from start to finish, and maybe I'll do that in the nearby future because Ultraman is becoming more accessible on streaming and stuff like that, so maybe I'll be doing that in the nearby future after I wrap up watching Kamen Rider Game and stuff like that. But this Ultraman comic written by Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom and artwork done by Francesco Manna is really, really good. I enjoyed this comic because if you don't know what Ultraman is, like me, you're going to have a blast with this comic because it's basically setting up the origin story for Ultraman. It is called Ultraman, the Rise of Ultraman, but this 5-part miniseries is very, very intriguing, and I'm curious to see how it's going to turn out because once it wraps up in a couple of months, maybe I'll jump on board with watching an Ultraman series. But I really, really did enjoy the characters in this. You've got Space Cadet Kiki, you've got Shin, who is going to become Ultraman, I'm guessing, with how the comic ended. But this comic, I'm really, really excited to see where it turns out and what's going to happen later down the line, because if you've never watched Ultraman like me, I think this comic is a good starting point for you to get into Ultraman. Now, if you don't want to buy the full comic, there is a preview on Comixology digitally, and then if you want to buy the full thing, it's roughly about $5. That's what I did. I read the preview and then I pre-ordered the actual comic the day it came out, but either way, I really enjoyed this comic. The artwork is really good. Francesco's artwork is very, very anime and manga-like. He captures the aesthetics and the characters, making it sort of seem like an anime or a manga, even though this is an Marvel comic. So he does a really good art style, giving them very anime-like expressions while making this comic sort of like an action film or an episode of Ultraman, even though I've never seen Ultraman before. Just the art style and the pacing of the story is sort of like watching your own tokusatsu show in the form of a comic, which would probably be a manga, but I don't know. But either way, I really, really enjoyed this comic, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Now, there's one thing I want to praise Matt and Kyle about with this comic is I love the writing for these characters. I love how they're written so far in the comic, and because the comic is only on issue 1, it's just starting out, we've only got 3 characters that we've met so far, and having a small cast, they've got a good way of writing the chemistry between one another because it bounces off each other very, very well. So I'm wondering if the cast is going to get bigger or not throughout this comic. I don't know, but because they've got such a small cast, you've got Kiki, you've got Shin, you've got that other guy, I can't remember who showed up in the comic, but I'll remember his name in post or something. But you've got a small cast so far, and it's slowly going to grow in the comic maybe. If not, I don't know, but I'm glad we've got 3 main characters we're focusing on so far in the comic, and we're going to build around the world so far, because I don't know anything about Ultraman. Like I said, I just know it's a giant guy that punches the crap out of other giant guys, so I'm very curious to see where this is going to go. There's one thing that really did confuse me in this comic. When they would talk about certain things, it would be whited out or censored. I don't know why. I think that's a plot thing that they don't want you to figure out right away, because it could be maybe something Ultraman related, or they're doing it writing-wise or plot-wise. They've just got like certain bits or certain things that they name in the comic that is censored out, and that's what got my attention the most when reading each panel, when reading each speech bubble, saying, why are they cutting out these words? That doesn't make any sense. Like, what are they hiding? And I'm curious if once we get further and further into different issues, we're going to find out what they're talking about, because it does take you out of the moment when you see what they're covering up, because you don't know if they're censoring a word or not, but they're covering up something that they don't want the audience to find out, but the characters between each other know what each other are talking about. So it's kind of a weird thing going on, but I'm excited to see what the payoff for those censored words are, those blacked out words and whited out words are, because whatever they are, they're definitely key plot points for the story that the audience is going to discover later down the line. But anyway, guys, that's my review of Ultraman issue number 1. Overall, I think it was a pretty good solid issue, and I know this review slash recap slash discussion was very, very different compared to my Power Ranger comic reviews. Not that in depth where I talked that in detail about it, because I am discovering Ultraman for the very first time. So I do apologize if I missed anything or went over anything important. I do apologize. I am ingesting this Ultraman stuff for the very first time and learning as I go along, so I probably repeated myself several times during the video, but overall I'm definitely going to keep reading this Ultraman comic because it's by 2 creators I know, and I'm a fan of their work, and I want to support them with this series and see where it goes next. And if this video does do well, I'll definitely have more Ultraman comic reviews in the nearby future. So if this video doesn't flop, I'm definitely going to have more Ultraman reviews up on the channel. And the format might be different for this video as well, where I won't have too many picture slides in the background. It might be just a still image, so you can tab out while you're listening if you haven't figured it out yet. But overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this review slash recap slash discussion. And tell me your thoughts on this Ultraman comic in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear your opinions, and yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. Thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, take care, all that good stuff. Bye.